Hello and a very warm welcome to Getting Started Creative Projects. Thanks for joining us. This webinar is a collaboration between Act On It and Pearson Edexcel. In the webinar, we will explore how you can make an effective start to your creative project. We will also hear from industry professionals about their current creative projects and how they make a start. We imagine that you are joining us today because you're either working on or thinking about starting a project with a creative outcome. You could be working individually or in a group. Above all, you're an innovator and a creator. Why work on a creative project? Working on a creative project is a really effective way to prepare yourself for progression. You could be working on a project that links to your future plans and perhaps the course you want to study at university. Working on a creative project will not only start to deepen your understanding of a subject area, but will also give you the opportunity to work practically and develop your skills and techniques. For instance, if you're a performer or an artist, you may work to produce a piece in the style you've not explored before. If you're designing a product or service, you may very well need to develop new design or technical skills along the way. Your creative project will also develop your skills for work. Whether you're working on this project as part of your school or college curriculum, as a standalone qualification, such as the extended project qualification, or more informally in your own time, we hope you find the webinar useful. What is the value of creativity? As an introduction to the value of creativity, Kim Gillespie, an experienced theatre director, talks to us about his work and the worth of arts in particular in society. After watching the clips, think about the value creativity brings to your project.
Hi, I'm Kim Gillespie. I'm a theatre director. I work in a lot of different styles and genres, from Shakespeare to modern theatre, classical theatre, musical theatre. I'm a jobbing director, so I go where the work is, essentially. My specialism and what I like to do is make work that I might call applied theatre practice, in which the audience have a much more dynamic part to play. They can stop the action and they can make decisions about which way it goes. Sometimes these are personal or social decisions, but essentially they have much more of a part to play. This technique can be used in corporate settings or commercial settings or in schools and colleges. It can be used across a range of places, but generally in the theatre it has to do with the audience being more involved, having more direct contact with the actors. The reason why I think arts are important in society, and the reason I work in the arts, in theatre and drama in particular, and applied theatre, is that I think art can make a difference to people in the way that they view the world. It can make an intervention to help them make decisions and stop taking things for granted in the way that they might have done in their everyday life. They can intervene and be a bit more active in what it is that they're doing with social relationships and politics and making decisions about their kind of daily lives. It intervenes. It's basically what it does. It stops people just kind of taking things for granted, and it makes them sit back a bit, think, reassess the kind of world around them, and then kind of make newer, fresher decisions going forward. That's why I think the arts are important.
What is a creative project? Your process and your outcome will be creative. When we say an outcome in this webinar, we mean the thing you are working towards creating. You could be working towards a performance, an event, a design, an artwork, a book or app, or any other original product or service as your creative outcome. In the working world, creative projects are often the response to a focused commission or a client brief. Working to a detailed commission, brief, or design specification will ensure your project work is focused and replicates professional practice. Your process will be creative because you will use creative skills. We often quickly think of the performer, artist, or designer as using their creative skills through their artistry. But project working in itself is creative. you will need to solve problems and think of new solutions throughout your process and your development of an original and innovative outcome. This is being creative. An example of a creative project. Working on a creative project will be hands-on. It's an opportunity to learn by doing and creating something new. You will take a practical rather than a purely academic approach. Helen Turner, one of the Act On It directors, will talk us through the Shouting Out project. This was a response to the issue of isolation during the COVID-19 lockdown, with a YouTube playlist as its outcome.
Hi, I'm Helen. This was a commission. Farnham Maltings, an arts venue, put out a call for work as part of their Making Theatre in Extraordinary Times project. As the COVID-19 pandemic unfolded, they wanted arts organisations to come up with a response. They wanted action and a creative response to these unique times. They wanted the response to involve the community and to capture their thoughts and feelings. Our pitch was to create 5 mini monologues, short speeches for a single actor to perform. We would write these collaboratively through creative conversations with young people over Zoom. At Act On It, we often work with marginalised groups to be sure that their voices are heard. So we had these conversations with young people excluded from school. We used a creative process, devising work for a creative outcome in a new and innovative way. We made the monologues, recordings for scratch performances on YouTube and to share on social media.
The transferable skills and benefits of a creative project. Working on a creative project develops the most wanted employability skills. You will have to be a forward thinker, solving problems and coming up with new solutions. You will need to effectively organise. If you're working on a group project, you'll have to collaborate with others. You'll have to constantly reflect on your individual and group progress in order to ensure that your outcome is as good as it can be. Creative project working is an opportunity to build your independence, taking personal or group responsibility and ownership, and setting your own aims and objectives, linked to your passions and interests. This will help to build your skills and give you valuable experience you'll be able to draw on in higher education and through your working life. You will have something that is your own to talk about in interviews or discuss in applications or your personal statement. If you're working towards the extended project qualification, you can work towards a creative outcome, and your project can achieve the same number of UCAS points as a dissertation. Examples of creative project outcomes. So, it's worth at this point taking a moment to consider the vast number of project outcomes that you could potentially work towards. A dance choreography on a theme of your choice. A musical composition or recording in a specific style. A piece of acting or theatre using the techniques of a practitioner you admire. An app design to teach a skill or part of the curriculum. An architectural design that addresses a social issue. A short story set in a specific place and time. A product design that improves accessibility for a certain group of people. An artwork that confronts an ethical issue. Hopefully, this has fired your imagination. If you are setting yourself a project brief or commission, identify the target market, audience or user group for your project outcome, the style or genre of the work you are creating, and parameters in terms of things like the size or cost of the outcome. You could try adding some additional detail to a couple of the ideas here, refining them into more focused design briefs or commissions. Key stages of a creative project. First, identify what you are interested in. What is going to sustain your interest and keep you motivated over a longer period of time? Think about your current ideas and your future plans. Then, plan your project and develop your commission or brief. Next, explore and research all the parts of your commission or brief. Practical primary research into specific skills and techniques may be vital, as well as investigating the physical resources you need to create your project outcome. Numbers 4 to 7 are the development process. This is your creative journey. Think about opportunities throughout the process to refine and improve the idea, product or performance. How will you develop and test initial designs, drafts or practical ideas before working on your final outcome? Finally, decide when and how you will launch your new creation. Review it and identify any next steps. It's worth remembering that the creative process is rarely this ordered. Different stages will overlap, and throughout the process you will need to keep an open mind, constantly researching, exploring, testing and evaluating as new ideas emerge. Tips for getting started. When exploring ideas for your project, eventually you won't be able to put off starting any longer and it will be decision time. Make sure you identify the main idea behind your project proposal. For the Act on It Shouting Out project, this was capturing the experiences and voices of a marginalised group of young people during the COVID-19 lockdown. Make sure you really define why you are undertaking this project. What is the need for your project? Who is the target market or audience for your work? This will ensure your project has a purpose and focus, rather than just being a vague exploration of new ideas. Consider if your outcome is going to be in a specific style or genre. Think about key influences that can inform your process and/or design. Identify any specific practitioners, designs, or experts in the field you can look into to get you started. Consider what processes you will have to complete during your project journey. Do you have all the skills and technical knowledge required? And if not, have you planned enough time to learn them? Think about the resources and materials that you will need. As you do this, you will be identifying the initial research you need to do as part of your project. Finally, be realistic and decide how far you will go as part of this project. For example, will you create a design, a prototype, or the final product? Will this project lead to a scratch performance or a full production? Use the time you have available and the resources you will have access to inform this decision. Planning your project. We have talked about considering your personal motives for your project. You can set yourself some clear objectives linked to these. Deciding what skill set or knowledge you want to grow can help with this. For example, decide exactly what you want to get better at, know more about, or improve in. Starting with clear objectives and your focused commission will ensure you have a framework to evaluate the success of your project against at the end of the process. Start your time planning and set some key dates and deadlines. Identify the most important milestones in the process. For instance, by what date should you have completed your initial designs, scene breakdown, or first draft? Do you need other people to review the work and when? Will you need approval for any part of the work? Allocate some extra time at points when you can predict potential difficulties or hold-ups. Projects often take longer than anticipated. Above all, remember your planning will change along the way. Nothing ever goes quite to plan. Modifying your plans is all part of an effective project development process. One example. We will now look at another example of real creative projects and practice. Rachel Steele from Act on It and Tony Seeley, a drama practitioner, discuss this. There are 3 recordings. The first one introduces Tony. The second one discusses his current work on a creative project with a very specific focus. And the final one explores some of his practical planning considerations and the importance of keeping an open mind during a creative project. Hello, I'm Rachel from Act On It, and I've got on the call with me today Tony Seeley, and I'll let Tony introduce himself to you.
Hi there, my name's Tony Seeley. I'm a drama and theatre practitioner, and I've been using drama and theatre activities for many years now. Essentially, my work takes me right across the board, working with youth and community, housing, regeneration, substance misuse. I deliver workshops and training to community groups. I deliver training to professionals like teachers and youth workers who want to use drama to explore issues. And I do a lot of performative work with wide ranges of groups, whether that's young people, adults or older people.
Okay, thanks Tony. Perhaps now you can tell us a bit about a project you're currently working on.
Yeah, so I'm currently working in the London Borough of Lambeth, and I'm working on a Monday night between 6 and 8 for a couple of hours with a group of black men classified as BAME, black ethnic minority men, essentially. And we have got a group of men are aged from age 21 upwards to about age 50, and these men come from all over parts of London, and they come to engage with the drama and share their concerns about mental health that they're experiencing. So, for example, stress or depression, and how that's impacting on their life. And we use the drama and the theatre to explore those issues that they are going through. All of this material on a week-by-week basis often leads up towards what we would call the outcome and the output, which is often a performance. And the performance is made up of a series of scenes and with some songs and poetry and a bit of dance, but lots of dramatic scenes that tell the story of one of our characters in the play and what happens to him and the journey he goes on through his mental health. These performances are publicised in the community, like in the libraries and community centres, and they're really aimed to engage the communities into a wider debate about issues around mental health and well-being.
Thank you. So now it would be good to hear a little bit about your process, just some of the stages you go through and some of your top tips for people who might be about to start their own creative project.
Well, I usually have just a couple of kind of planning processes. One is always around the venue and the partners. So the venue is very important. Where you're going to hold your sessions, what time of day or evening, whether that time that you're running them is the best time to run it for that particular group, so that you get more of an impact. And in terms of your sort of partners, just be thinking about who you might want to sort of also be working with, whether that's with a local school or a youth club, or getting them involved, or allowing them to know about what you're doing in that space at that particular time is always useful, because if you can build that relationship with those partners, it always helps people knowing about your work. With the work, I think for me, I often will make a plan based on what the aims and objectives are of the session. For example, exploring, mental health. But what I often find is that because the group have got so much to often say, you really want to be open and flexible to listen to what they're saying. And the trick is to really try to respond and react to their what they're saying by making some games or exercises that can connect and relate to their expressions, really. So in a way, it's more of an open kind of process where you come in with a sort of a plan of some things that you might do, but be very open to work with the group and see where they go.
Map the field and identify alternatives. As you get started, look up and out. Map the field and find out who else is doing the type of work you are considering for your project. Don't work on your own, in a silo. Try to make connections. You can do this in different ways. By considering how your project builds on or complements the work of others. By thinking about its potential to link to a different sector. By identifying how your work could meet another community of interests, aims, needs, or current agenda. Have an open mindset. Challenge your own thinking from the beginning. What is the counter-argument or other thinking around the issue or theme? What are the different processes, designs or materials that you could choose to use? Above all, consider alternatives from the beginning and throughout the process. It is only through investigating and testing out different alternatives that you will solve problems and produce your best product outcome. Be creative and original. At the beginning of this webinar, we boldly guessed that you are undertaking a creative project because when it comes down to it, you are an innovator and a creator. Don't forget this. It seems obvious, but as you're getting started, be creative and be original. Do think about what really motivates you, what you want to really communicate or make. What needs could be met by your creation? Who you are trying to connect with or come up with a product or solution for? Answering these questions will spark your creativity and make sure you have the commitment needed to see you through the ups and downs of a challenging project. The commitment that comes from having a mission or a passion to really create a new solution, design, product, or performance of your very own. Make your plan. And now, another reminder to underpin your passion with planning. Put a detailed plan in place as you are getting started on your creative project. As we've said, be realistic and use the following as a checklist to make sure you've thought of the main things. What are you creating? Define your project outcome. It seems so obvious, but some forget. And what resources you need to research or get hold of to make a start. Why are you undertaking this project? Clarify why it is needed and what are your own personal objectives for doing it. Who needs your project outcome? Think about this and who will be able to inform your own approach. Where will your final outcome take place, be used, viewed or listened to? Identify the spaces you will need to work in and where you could visit to further research your project. How will you do it? Work out how you will get to the end of your project journey and create your project outcome. Break the process down and decide the key stages you will need to go through on your creative journey. Plot how you will develop, test and refine your ideas. When will you do this? Now you're ready to put your initial time planning in place. And finally, good luck. We hope this webinar has been useful and that you're now more confident to get started on your own creative projects.